We alive.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us here on 16 Style Types. In this video, we're going to talk about ESTP, the Style Explorer.
Yes, we also call her the resourceful stylist, and that's because there's a few SPs often are very resourceful, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Very adaptable. In the moment problem solving is what you get with the STPs, the SFPs, in the moment relating to others. So in the moment, obviously key for our SPs, very often attuned to their environment, most sensitive to what is going on around them, often noticing trends or people, or it's filtered through their own personal values, but they're often highly attuned to what's happening in their environment right now.
Which means that they can really adapt outfits, can't they? They can, like, they're good at putting things together, or in taking things from something and putting it with something else. That's a rather than having to go out and just buy an outfit as an outfit. I think some types tend to go, oh, I just need to buy a whole new outfit.
Yeah.
Versus the ESTP can quite easily put something together with existing things in their wardrobes.
Yes, often quite adventurous, happy to colour outside the style lines. But interestingly, where we say our ISFP, that sense of artistic, artisanal whimsy, we don't tend to see that with ESTPs, often much more practical in that regard, and often just a little bit more, I'm going to use the word corporate, even if they don't come from a corporate environment. So a little bit more structure, a little bit more classic lines to what they're wearing rather than artistic or creative lines in what they wear. So very much have that systematic thing that's going on, which we see with people with T and P in their type code, that introverted thinking component coming in, which is everything sits on some kind of principle-based, subjective, structural, systemic thing, and that comes into our ESTP style, which gives it that sort of overall strategic kind of approach as well.
Yes, looking for that kind of system and how do I do things.
Yeah.
So yes, so they're often quite active people as well. It's a fairly also typical of an SP thing, is that liking to do things.
Yes, and some ESTPs, their hobby wardrobe is bigger than their wardrobe for work, depending on how passionate they are about what it is that they do. So, an example might be somebody who's into dancing, and their dance wardrobe is bigger than the rest of their wardrobe because that's their hobby, that's their thing. So you've got the Northern Lights going on there again.
I've got the Northern Lights, but there we go. That's a bit better.
A beautiful Melbourne winter morning, beautiful sunshine, but not so great for Facebook Lives.
Yes. But yeah, so so it's an interesting kind of thing. I always think about that, like that kind of movement and doing. And again, because they very much live in the present, they will be often more aware than some types about what are the fashion trends, I think, as well, because they do live in this moment and what's going on around them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And trends and fads can be part of that. So ESTPs unlikely to just adopt a fad completely 100%, more likely to integrate it into their style in some way, potentially a little bit differently as well. So, they are quite inventive in the way that they think about things, but this is pragmatic inventiveness. I always think that SPs often have this sort of sense of paradox about them, because we often associate inventiveness with N and P, this big picture, popcorning, wild associations of things that you'd never put together. And SPs don't do it that way because their feet are firmly placed on the ground. So in a way, you kind of have to look a little bit more closely to see how creative they're being. But there's always this almost like a wink to what they're doing, particularly ESTPs. One of the things about them in the style type, not the style type report, but a type report that we're aware of, is they're the most likely to become stand-up comics.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
I wondered who were the most likely to become stand-up comics.
ESTPs, most likely to be stand-up comics.
There you go. But yeah, so there you go. So, you know, have a little bit of fun. I think fun is really important in that kind of, you know, I think that can be part of that whole SP thing too, is they want to turn everything into fun. Like work is fun, everything's fun, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to get ground down into theory. How boring.
And unlike other types, mostly J's, who like to compartmentalize, SPs and ESTPs sort of lead the pack in this, in terms of life is all of a piece. So where we might think of turning work into fun, that, you know, suggests some sort of alchemical process, it just is. For ESTP, it's all just melded together. They bring this sense of enjoyment of life. It imbues everything that they do. So setting things up as fun and not fun is just not how their brain works, because it's all just integrated together.
Yes. So they are very likely to care about how their clothes feel on their body. So like sensing types, you know, that's some things we've noticed, particularly about sensing types and some feeling types, but definitely with that sense, it's that the kinesthetic sense of how your clothes feel. So very likely to want to be going for things that allow you to move and do things, and because they're active, that's going to be part of what they do as well, isn't it?
It is. And when you're aware of this is what's so fascinating about style types, is that there would be ESTPs who would have some sense that this is the case. But if it's not front and center when you're purchasing, and you fall in love with other aspects of a style, you can temporarily downgrade that criteria, but you learn the hard way, because that item never gets worn. And it can be a slow process of going, well, what is it? It's ticking all these other boxes. It should work. And this is what's great about knowing this about your style type, is you can just leapfrog over all of that experimentation and just know that if it doesn't feel good on the body, it's never going to work. Even if it's 10 out of 10 on every other criteria and you madly love it, it just won't be worn.
Now, Sue's just asked us, have you found that ESFPs mistake themselves as ESTPs or vice versa?
It can happen. They share the dominant function of extroverted sensing, and then their supporting function is introverted. So ESFP, it's introverted feeling, which is values-based and often about, you know, harmonious relationship to self and then to others. ESTP, introverted thinking, which is again a subjective process, but is really more about logical systems. And you can tell the difference when you're interacting with them as well. They present differently, if you like. That's been my experience with them. I'll never forget a leadership program that I was doing, highly engaging. We had a corporate actor, and you know, it was a very participative, generative learning based sort of program. And there was a bit of conflict. That's how I was experiencing it, as the facilitator with a feeling preference. Yeah. And in the break, I just happened to get chatting with this woman. She had ESTP preferences. She was gorgeously dressed. She had these knee-high, shiny black riding boots, all in black, and this fabulous short red trench coat, and beautifully groomed. And I made some reference to what had preceded, and she said, "Oh, I thought that was fun." You know, like it was really quite invigorating for her to be involved in something where there was some logical discussion, debate. You know, it was energizing to exercise the brain in that way.
Yeah, I don't think they have, and I think maybe this is a TP trait, they don't have the same. I think TPs are probably more likely to go into conflict, you know, and not see it as a negative thing in the way that many other types actually find it really uncomfortable.
Correct.
And they're not bothered by it in the way, and they don't go away and ruminate on it and bellyache and feel it.
Obsess. Yeah, no, they don't do that. Sometimes they don't even notice it.
No, and I think that is one of the things, is that's what I've noticed with some of my particular, you know, TPs and a few ESTPs, that where you go, wow, that was really blunt and really unnecessary, and you know, it's complete, you're unaware of it. So I think that could be a good thing if you're trying to decide between ESTP and ESFP. I suppose it's often that how conflict comes at you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that aligns with research into conflict. Damien Colleen in the UK, Ireland, has done a lot of research, and he says it's the last two letters. So TP presenting very differently to FP when it comes to conflict, our tolerance for it, how we tend to engage with it, how we even experience it, how we define it. And of course, that capacity to be in an environment where there are divergent points of view, strongly held, strongly expressed, is an incredibly valuable skill. So we're not in any way, dissing it, criticizing it. It's very, very useful in many, many circumstances. And in fact, an inability to do what TPs do so naturally can get in the way of a good outcome in some circumstances. But it is one of the things that demarcates TP from FP. FPs can often feel things very, very strongly, but, cultivating or engaging in or even fueling something that feels confrontational is generally not what you see FPs doing. They will generally withdraw in all kinds of ways.
Unless it's something that's massively stepping on their values. I suppose that would be the thing with the FP, that if you are really stepping on my personal values, if I have some sort of mission in the world, and that'll be where they'll go into battle for it. But yes. I think for anything else, probably less so versus TP. And I think this is why TPs make the great negotiators, don't they?
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic at that. My husband is ISTP, so same functions as ESTP, just in a different order. And, his capacity for being in conflict situations is extraordinary. Things I'm just cringing, lying on the floor, hiding under the desk. And exactly. And here's what's so interesting about this is where type outs is other people will accept this from him. And I'm going, oh, that is just so blunt. But other people accept it because it's authentic, it's real, it's sincere, it's not maliciously intended, it's coming from an authentic place. And this is the beauty of type, which is not to say we all can't compromise and adjust our style under certain circumstances. Of course we can. But in terms of confusing ESTP and ESFP, just a dominant function level, because that's an extroverted function and it's sensing, it's all about the environment and it's highly visible and it's tuning into the five senses, that yes, at that level, certainly ESTP and ESFP are type related in that regard.
Very related there, but yeah, then it's how we experience them. I think that's often that's quite a difference with those two, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they also like to, do things like get changed. So there's some types who really want to have the same outfit that takes them from dawn till dusk. It takes them from walking the dog through to cleaning the house, through to having lunch out with some friends, through to a dinner out or whatever it is they're doing. They
or these days, the 6 Zooms I have scheduled for the day.
Yeah. But yeah, the ESTP happy to get changed, happy to actually change their outfits for different occasions.
Changing up, I think, is a really good shorthand for ESTP, the idea of just changing up. And whether or not that's throughout the day because of different activities or just for novelty, to keep my own interest going. Because one of the things that dogs ESTPs is boredom, too much routine, too much samey. And so when it comes to wardrobing, they are the ones who benefit the most from having a wardrobe that's set up like a store where they can pick and choose things and put things together in new ways. And I've never put these two things together. And so they, the way that their closet is organized really can make a big difference to how they experience it, how much enjoyment they get out of it.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, is that like set your space up in a way that really works for you. Is there anything, do you remember anything from when we're doing the research about the ESTP and their wardrobe in particular?
Well, one thing that really struck me was our ESTP Style News shared with us how when her dad had died and there was a clearing out of his possessions, she kept a lot of his clothes. And he'd worked in a corporate environment where he wore ties, and she made his ties into a skirt. And I just thought that was just phenomenal, an amazing thing that would never have occurred to me in a million years. I would have just thought men's ties, off they go to the charity store. And yet she had come up with this very inventive thing. It was wearable art. She wore it. She worked in the education sector and she wore it to work. She styled it with other things that gave it a bit of a corporate look. But I imagine, I didn't see it, but I imagine it drew conversation, being quite an inventive item of clothing that you could tell was made from men's ties, but beautifully done.
So that's a great result. It's such a resourceful thing, and it's turning something into something else, isn't it? Like it's that like, and what I love about that is it's rather than just hang on to the ties and have them take up space, because this is where often what we do is when we have memories attached, and clothing has a lot of memories, a lot of feeling attached to it in many wardrobes. And that's one of the things I see when people holding on to the past. It's like, it was my dad's this, it was my dad's ties. I'm holding on to them because then I have the feeling of him. And the fact that she actually turned it into something like that's that practical nature of that TP is in STP, massively practical, isn't it? Absolutely. And it's that taking that memory and turning it into something that's beautiful, wearable, still appropriate. I mean, ties, very corporate, even though they're in a skirt. But then also has that, you can have that memory with you. And it's not just cluttering up your space. I think that's a really great
And unlike some of the other inventive types where they take an item of clothing and they wear it in a really unusual, unexpected way, and you can look at it and think, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. Like this resembled a skirt. It was no question. It wasn't in and of itself overly creative. Also the fact that the memories were sort of woven into it. It wasn't a testimony to her father in a way. She was reinventing. It was now something else. And I think that's really key to understanding ESTP, this ability to let go, move on. Now I'm in another space. It's quite phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, so I can imagine it was probably just straight with a little bit of flair, because just the way, I can imagine it would have been an A-line skirt, because that's when you join a bunch of ties together, so it'd be a very traditional kind of A-line skirt. There'd be nothing out there in a way that, say, an NFP would have turned it into something completely different.
Or if it was a skirt, might have been a skirt with asymmetrical lengths, and maybe some of the ties might have been bunched or turned into rosettes
sideways or
zebras or exactly. Where you go, wow, that in and of itself, is that actually wearable as a garment potentially? Whereas no question about that. And as you say, actually, if you look at the silhouette of it, a very traditional garment. Yeah. So to me, that story encapsulates the essence of ESTP. It's as a touchstone, so many different threads you can draw off that give you really good clues into the heart and mind of an ESTP.
Yeah. So some of the other things, they might enjoy shopping. Like they often, it's the fun, there's a fun, and I think that's an ESPs generally enjoy shopping. From all the ESPs I know, shopping is something that they have, it's a fun because it's stimulating. And I think that's part of that thing, that EP, like it's that stimulation, it's new, we're in the present, we're in the now, it's colors, it's textures, it's music,
all of it, senses, all senses are engaged in a shopping experience.
So shopping can be something, which means you could have a very large wardrobe if that's something, and that could happen.
Absolutely, which comes back again to how things are brought into the wardrobe and increasing that level of awareness about things that work and things that don't. One of the things that also differentiates ESFPs from ESTPs is the strategic thinking that underpins in that auxiliary position of introverted thinking. And so ESTPs are often, putting everything into a spreadsheet, essentially. So everything sort of has some sort of place in the overarching principled systemic thing that is unique to them. This is introverted thinking at its essence. And so from that perspective, when they have some awareness about style, and in general of the thinking types, ESTPs would be high on my list of the thinking types that are tuned into style, because they're tuned into image. and personal presentation and how they're perceived and how to get a message across, which comes into being great negotiators. And ESTPs are generally considered the salespeople of the world. P.T. Barnum was considered, he actually, what did he say? It's morally wrong to let a sucker keep his money. So, and ESTPs, they were wonderful at, they're expressive, they're verbal, often talkative, persuasive, all of those kinds of things. And so, their wardrobe is part of that. They know the power of image.
Yeah. They use their image in a way that's going to assist them in whatever they're doing.
Yeah, very outcomes focused.
Yes. I think that. So they'll often want to know what their style rules are. So they'll kind of get their style rules because then they're going to be on point, like it's going to work for them. Identifying best colors, best styles. Yep. And I think too is that because they're this action, they're in an action, there are those inaction types. They want to get up and get dressed and get out the door.
That's right.
Like, let's not be spending lots of time. They're less about like an NFP or, might be spending ages like going, I'm going to create some exciting things and the fun. Like whenever I think of Iris Epfel, I'm pretty sure NFP. She talks about the fun of putting the outfit on. She's not interested in going to the party.
Partly that's because she's also talked about all those necklaces. She can only wear them for half an hour. Yeah. She has to take them off.
It's too heavy. But she enjoys, it's the fun of putting the outfit together. That's where the joy for her lives versus the ESTP. The fun is the party. Like the outfit just gets you to the party and it's right for the party.
And gets you noticed at the party if that's what you want to be. The other thing about style rules is, unlike, say, the SJs, STJs in particular, who like to adhere to style rules because of the stability that they give them and the confidence that give them, the STPs want to adhere to the style rules because it's an accelerator. It gets them where they want to go quicker and achieving the image outcome that they're going after, which also means they can abandon those style rules just like that. Boom. That's over. Now I'm in a different part of my life. And so those style rules no longer apply because they're not an accelerator for me anymore in this environment. And this is one of the differences between SPs and SJs. The meaning of rules in general, they apply beautifully into the style environment, where SJs can have lots of trouble transitioning in their lives because they're taking old rules, past experience, and applying it to current reality. SPs do not have that problem. Boom, that's gone. Chapter finished. Somewhere else.
So would they be very good at culling their wardrobe? If they're like kind of going, it's last season, off.
Gone, no longer me, I'm in a different phase of my life. So yes, not sentimental.
Not sentimental at all, yeah. So if you're wondering if you're an SP or an SJ, that's because I think SJ is very sentimental in many ways.
Yeah, and also very much past experience informs current reality. This is one of the hallmarks of the 4 SJ types, and this just totally is that's a foreign language to SPs. That is just so not how they think.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it?
It is. It's fascinating. Oh, I tell you, the psychological type, there's nothing more fascinating. Yeah. And of course, every ESTP is different in how they apply, but these are the fundamental principles, and when you know this, you can just avoid all potential pitfalls or unnecessary experimentation. And I would say another differentiator between ESTP and ESFP is the SFs, the 4 SF types, our style estheticians, that's the style type, tend to have an inherent natural affinity for beauty and artistic things that are aesthetic. They're drawn to them in and of themselves, whether or not that's creating a beautiful garden or an approach to their home or crafting or whatever. ESTPs, not so much. Our STs are our style pragmatists.
Yeah.
Totally different approach when it comes to style.
Yeah, very pragmatic about what works. Like what works now, what works for my environment, what's going to give me the power that I want, what's going to give me the reaction that I want.
ESTP is an in-charge style. So this is the interaction styles of Linda Barron's 4 groupings. So ESTP is in charge.
Yeah. So one of the things that they could do too is actually get somebody else's once over, because sometimes if they're quick to action, they may miss you know, maybe the blouse is gaping, or maybe the fit's not quite right, or maybe being overdressed or underdressed, because they do have this thing for comfort too. That is the one thing that they could easily get, you know, caught up in, that sometimes comfort overrides style or appropriateness.
Yes, they're certainly not infallible, even if they think they are.
They've got great belief in themselves.
They do, you know, inherently a confident style,
Yeah.
and a style that presents, and a type that presents as confident. But this is also where choosing style advisors is incredibly important, because they're certainly not going to take style advice just from anybody.
Who will they take it from? How will they make a decision on who is the person? Because that's that TI, isn't it? That's introverted thinking. It's got to be the most accurate, the most logical, the best information. That's that typical of that TI or the TPs in general.
Yeah. So, you know, a combination of somebody who's incredibly competent. But see, you can get to competence. Competence is a mountain with many roads up it. And one of them is, you know, through study and building of knowledge, and which is often what we associate with the intuitives who just love to gather knowledge. This kind of competence that's going to appeal to an STP is going to be through experience, through helping somebody else get promoted, helping somebody else get where they wanted to go. So it's results oriented rather than knowledge oriented competence. And so, you know, if I was an image consultant and I wanted to appeal to this particular style type, that's what I'd be saying. I help this person achieve this result. And that's, you know, fairly influential information for an ESTP.
Yeah, it's what is the result? What's the outcome?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So, I mean, you know, is there anything else that, you know, that anybody else can learn, or is there any particular challenge they may have that they've got to be careful of? Have they got a little Achilles heel?
Well, on the learning front, I would say that adventurous spirit is something we can all take something from. Now, some style types are oriented towards that. This might reflect my own style type, who I tend to be not particularly adventurous. I don't know, sometimes I look creative, but really it's smoke and mirrors when you can break down the construction of it. It's very traditional. You know, just thrown a few sequins at you. But so I think that sort of willingness to color outside the style lines is a really admirable quality. And they have a bit of a take no prisoners kind of attitude, no regrets. And I think that's also, you know, something that we can all take a little kernel of that and apply it to ourselves in our own separate ways. It'll be different for every person and every type. But I think that's also an extremely appealing quality to have. You know, just I know myself, I can get caught up in regrets. I shouldn't have bought this, or I shouldn't have been so quick to do a cull on that, or, you know, I can get sort of caught up in the past and raking through the ashes, and that can run out of usefulness pretty quickly, and they don't tend to do that.
Yes, and I think this is where it's that, you know, because they're moving forwards all the time, and it's about the result. You know, they don't keep the old milk. They don't keep anything old, so they're not going to get dated likely in the way that SJs can much more easily become dated if they're not careful.
Absolutely.
Because if you've found a style, you're going, it works, and I'm going to stick with it. Versus they'll like go, no, that was so last year. And I bet you it's probably an STP who made that saying up. You know, no, that was so last week. It's probably one of those, that type. But yes, so things like where I think one of their challenges may actually be planning and building a wardrobe. Because they're moving forwards, it's that haven't, you know, unlike you, who thinks a lot about the curation of your wardrobe. What do I have? What do I need? What goes with what? How is this going to work in with what I've already got? Can I create 5 other outfits or 10 other outfits with this new thing? Like, those are very much thoughts that come through probably most J's minds, I would say. But this is, you know, kind of going forward, and it might just be buying an outfit that may not go with everything. Now, they can have ways to be able to be resourceful and put things together, but that could be a little bit of lack of planning, or going, oh, it suddenly got cold, I haven't got a thing that goes with this.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that could be something to you know, great items, like lots of lovely things, but maybe they don't always go together.
Yeah.
And that's always something to look for. And there's plenty of people who have that problem as well. I see lots of wardrobes. I go, you've got some fabulous things, Sally, you've just got nothing to wear them with.
Which, of course, that's the wonderful advantage of having a fresh set of eyes on your wardrobe, somebody who sees it from a coordination perspective and a workability and a wearability perspective. You know, that's always money well spent.
Yes. So, yeah, so there we go. There's just a few little tips for the ESTPs out there. And the other times you want to learn something, because I think we all learn so much from each other's style, don't we? Like, and approach to style where, you know, it's that sort of thing to go, oh, maybe I can, you know, like what do I learn from the NFs is like, or to be more authentic, and what can I, you know, or the, you know, the FPs, be more authentic. What do I learn from the Js? Be more organized, plan ahead. You know, what do I learn from the ESTPs? It's, you know, being in the moment or being results driven. You know, like what is the result that I want? All these things. I think that's something that's so great that we can learn from each other.
Absolutely. And of course, the trick about that is to not take the advice holus bolus and just plonk it over the top of your own approach. No. It has to be woven into it. And the weaving changes it from its original format. So how an ESTP would approach being adventurous with their style will show up very differently to how, say, I would, or an ESFJ in general would do it. And that's the beauty of the advice of taking it, is you don't just take it holus bolus. This is where a lot of women have gone wrong, is they've read 10 things every woman should do with their style, and they said, right, I want to get on top of my style, I'm going to take these 10 things, I'm just going to literally apply them, and then they end up with the result they're unhappy with on whatever level. They don't feel like themselves, they feel like they're wearing a costume, it just doesn't suit them, they actually look fatter, whatever it is. Yeah. And of course, you have to do that integration piece. You have to weave it into your own approach, and through that the advice gets changed and shows up differently. But this is the beauty of it, this is the magic of it.
Yes. So of course, if you don't know your style type, you can head over to 16styletypes.com and you can, you know, find out your style type there and get your style type report, plus all the extra bonuses that we have with that. That'll give you a really good understanding of what is your style essence. So that's your approach to style. It's not going to tell you, you know, buy these 10 things, because of course you are an individual person with your own lifestyle, your own location, your own, what you do, how you spend your time, your personality, your age, your coloring, your body shape. All those things of course have to be laid on top, but it will give you an understanding of what your approach is, your style, you know, strengths, what you're great at, because often we don't see our strengths. And I think that's something that actually starting to appreciate your strengths is really important. And then also what your challenge areas may be. So where your little blind spots are, plus there's a 4-phase blueprint to help you improve your style, depending on where you are in that blueprint as well. So we're giving you some action steps that are very type related for you to work with your style. So of course, if that's something of interest to you, please do head over to 16styletypes.com and discover your style type. And we will be back again soon talking about another style type.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Bye for now.